Thank you everybody for being here today. My name is Cassie Farber and I am the coordinator for the Student Honors Board, and I'm really happy to be here today for the Life Raft debate. So for those of you who don't know what the premise is, there has been an apocalypse. Not COVID, but a different one, a worse one, if that's even possible. And there is now only one inhabitable spot left on Earth, and the Life Raft to get there is leaving in about an hour and a half. And there's only one spot left. So we are here today to decide which one of these lovely professors deserve that spot on the Life Raft to safety. So, Dr. Allison, did you want to? Okay, cool. So how it's gonna work is that we have each of the professors here, and then also we have a professor on Zoom today, that are gonna take a turn speaking and presenting about their own department, program, whatever that may be. And then we also have a devil's advocate who is going to be debating them about it. So without further ado, we can have the first professor come up and speak their 5 minutes, and that will be Dr. Carreno.
Hi, everyone. I argue that the natural sciences are the best choice to be represented for a spot in the Life Raft. Of course, the choice of an OU professor from any discipline to join the Life Raft in an apocalyptic world is a good one that can enhance the rebuilding of a post-apocalyptic world. I had assumed that the devil's advocate, himself an OU professor, would agree with this. However, he told me right before this debate that the world would have been better off with OU administrators in the Life Raft rather than faculty. This is really the main reason that he's going to try to discredit us, so I urge you to ignore him. Obviously, of the choices available today, picking the natural sciences survivor to join the Life Raft is the best. The goal of science is to create descriptions of reality that are independent of us and our identities, opinions, and beliefs. We call these descriptions knowledge, and knowledge can be expressed in language, mathematics, graphs, images, or some sort of combination of those things. To create knowledge, we use the scientific method. This is a collection of techniques to measure the way things are in nature, independent of our own perspectives. These techniques include observation, inductive reasoning, hypothesizing, unique prediction, experimentation, recording, and replication, among other things. These techniques help cull objective, reliable knowledge out of our subjective perspectives. Scientists choose to explore and document the world of objective reality. The opposite approach by the humanities and social sciences and their shameful embracing of postmodernist nonsense was what likely brought about the human apocalypse in the first place. Natural science knowledge must now be used to rebuild a post-apocalyptic society. There's a long list of qualities that a biologist has that can rebuild the world. To give an example, knowledge of human and other animal anatomy, physiology, and life histories are vital to rebuild the fields of human and veterinary medicine. If someone needs emergency medical treatment or surgery, would you trust someone who's an expert in anatomy and who can recognize lesions? Or would you go with someone who is a good musician or who can explain what a tilde is? There's room for the arts in a post-apocalyptic world, but not during the rebuild. Should the last survivor be a social sciences or humanities professor? What have the social sciences accomplished in recent years? The job of today's American social science professor is to segregate different groups of people into political and ideological factions and to pit them against each other in an endless cycle of conflict, grievance, and malcontentedness. Although a rebuild of society with the world's second language might be nice, The humanities overall in its current form should not be represented. Much humanities scholarship has been reduced to attempting to discredit much of the world's scientific, cultural, and economic heritage of the past in a guilt and misery-ridden frenzy, usually with the same divisive tactics of the social scientists. The negative, perpetually divisive ideological monoculture provided by the social sciences and humanities of today would ensure a post-apocalyptic civilization resulting in unhappiness, strife, and poverty equally shared by all. As for the devil's advocate, he must not be taken seriously. He's like Team Croatia in the last World Cup. All talk, no action. Pick me, the natural scientist, if you hope for a bright future for humanity.
How do I get this? Yeah. Yeah, I came prepared, did you? All right. Well, I got one for you. So, let me give you, I'm supposed to give rebuttals to each one of my esteemed colleagues for 3 minutes, but just to first set it up, I am not looking for a place on the raft. They are. I am here to convince you that none of them deserve to be on the raft. So if you kick them off, doesn't mean I go. Perhaps one of you can go instead. All right. So, Dr. Carreno talked big words, rebuilding, hypothesizing, synthesizing, threw these big words to impress you. But you know better than that. Objective, reliable knowledge. Like he owns it. He speaks like he's the medical doctor. Take me with you and I will save the world of everything. I will show you how real doctors work in the world. Medical doctors. He is a doctor, just like me. Wrong kind of doctor. Just to give you an idea, when he says he can help you. This is the paper that he wrote. I hope it was in English. Distribution of thalastomatoid nematodes in endemic and introduced cockroaches on the Galapagos Island archipelago. Wonderful, very useful, especially in the post-apocalyptic world. Unless we're all cockroaches to him, then he can study us. Maybe that's what he thinks of us. Now, he does have a course, Parasites and Immunity, which is great. And we're in the middle of the pandemic right now. Very appropriate course if you are teaching history. This would have been useful a little while ago, not right now. How do we stop this? How did this come around? How did this come about? The timing, not the greatest. And advice not to eat bats would have been useful a little earlier. What time? 30 seconds. So, I will try to convince you that he is full of nonsense, that he is one of the reasons why we are actually here in the post-apocalyptic world. And please do not take him with you.
All right, you're up. 2 minutes to rebut.
that? No, I'll use
So,
that later.
hold on, let me figure out how to get this on, so we don't have to, how do you put it up on the screen, the other screen? All right, thank you.
Well, I would thank the devil's advocate for his comments, but they were completely useless, so I can skip that formality. I think that the course Parasites and Immunity really has little to do with history and more with contemporary things. Whoever the survivor is who gets on the life raft may or may not be infected with parasites. So are any of these people going to help prevent the spread of those things, or is someone who's well versed in parasitology going to be able to control those things and find solutions? I am not a medical doctor, and this is a very noble profession, but if we don't have a medical doctor in the life raft among the survivors, the biologist is the next best thing. Really, this is the only way we can go forward. Pretty much all physicians are, at some point in their careers, trained by biology professors, including parasitologists. As for the cockroaches, if the apocalypse was a nuclear one, or if not, there could be very many cockroaches around the world that will have to be dealt with. Cockroaches carry many germs, viruses, parasites that can contaminate food, and so we must be careful with those. La cucaracha sí que puede caminar en un apocalipsis. So there are reasons for me to be on the life raft.
My name is Andrea Colvin, and I represent the Humanities. Dear fellow humans, we have witnessed the end of our world as we have known it. We are faced with the seemingly impossible task of rebuilding our civilization. I'm standing before you today in order to implore you to give me, the representative of the Humanities, the last remaining spot on the life raft. Friends, we're living at a pivotal moment. The world we have loved has been destroyed by a pandemic, climate change, nuclear war. It might be very tempting to listen to the arguments of my esteemed colleague and be convinced that a scientist is what the world needs. However, I believe that would be a mistake. Yeah, it's true that science and technology have given us some useful things like vaccines and some life-saving technologies, but they also gave us nuclear war, didn't they? And they also gave us the very machines that destroyed our planet. Therefore, you must think and choose very carefully. If you're asking yourself right now, but of what use are the humanities, as insinuated by my colleague, what could someone from the humanities possibly contribute that will make our new world better? Here's what I'll say to this. To ask the first question, but of what use are the humanities, is to ask the wrong question. It's exactly the same question that many people asked before we got into this mess, and why we ended up where we are today. Because to examine everything in light of its practical and utilitarian value is to lose sight of what it means to be human and to live in community with other humans. My answer to the second question, what can someone from the humanities contribute that will make the world better? Well, everything. Everything we know about what it means to be human, about what it means to live together with others, and to add meaning and beauty to our collective existence. So I want you to go on an imaginary journey with me for a moment. Imagine a world without stories. What would that be like? To not have stories to entertain us, to allow us to escape even for a brief moment from the harsh reality in which we live, to imagine ourselves in a different world, a better place, to see things from somebody else's perspective. Or what about a world without poetry, to inspire us, to move us and open our eyes to other ways of expressing joy or sorrow? What about a world without art or music to express the depth of emotions felt by the human spirit? Because yes, artistic expressions are actually part of the humanities in the traditional sense of the discipline as well. Do you remember the first weeks and months of the COVID-19 pandemic? Did we turn to science for comfort? No, because they didn't have any answers. They were just as confused as everybody else. What we turned to was things like music and art and books and films, because we needed moments of respite and comfort and inspiration. So it is the humanities that gave us those things, and because of the humanities, we learn to appreciate them and learn from them and become better humans as a result. If you're still not convinced, imagine this. Imagine a world in which we as a society never learn from our collective mistakes because we no longer value historical analysis. Or what about a world in which deep critical thinking is not considered important and nobody ponders the big questions of life, like why are we here? What is the meaning of our existence? And is it possible that there may be a spiritual realm that cannot be captured or measured by the scientific method? Would you want to live in a world where everything is measured by how useful or practical it is? Where numbers and data are everything? Where nobody talks about the things that matter most, and where beauty, creativity, morality, and values are notably absent from how a society functions? It's not a world in which I would want to live, and I bet you wouldn't want to either. Therefore, I ask you to think carefully and consider me for the last remaining spot on your life raft. Thank you.
I thought it was going to be Frank. There it is. Thought Frank was going to be next. All right, Andrea. Andrea, sorry. It's not going to matter much longer. So, humanities. All right. So if you want to debate whether the apocalypse actually happened or not, that would be useful. Sit around, debate, talk about the meaning of life, when really the only thing on your mind is surviving. Not good timing, not the best timing in the world. Maybe there's going to be usefulness for that later on, but first of all, it's survival. So it means one extra person can go in if you don't go. Humanities, it says it is important, but I wouldn't really call it the most important. I mean, just look at this. This is the name of a paper, The Search for an Ideal Interlocutor in Rosenkoff's El Bataraz. That's the name of her paper that she wrote. That's what you could discuss on the life raft, I guess. It would last even longer than you would imagine it would. Interlocutor, you couldn't just a simple thesaurus would say, could have used a speaker. Why not just use a speaker? Interlocutor. Which brings me to the critical thinking part. She said that she's there to help you critically think. Well, I'm here to present the critical thought. Again, not to argue that I should be on the life raft. To analyze their arguments and present them what they truly are. I'm here to point out the logical flaws and lies presented to you. Well, they say I'm negative and criticize them. But it's okay to be a critical thinker, isn't it? She just said we need to do critical thinking. It's okay to think for yourself. It's okay to say, hey, you mighty professor, you are wrong. I guess they feel a little bit out of their place right now because usually it is them who look at you and criticize you. Now it's time to flip the sides. So you are moving to a new world. You don't need any of them. You can think on your own. you have enough skills, you have enough curiousness, you have enough courage to succeed without any of these professors over here. There it is.
Isn't it kind of funny how he feels threatened by words? And he didn't even, take the time to learn my name correctly, to be able to pronounce it correctly.
It's not going to matter much longer.
Friends, this guy, obviously a devil's advocate, it's all in the name, right? Is it really worth believing? There's a reason why the humanities have been around longer than all of the other strains of knowledge combined, longer than the scientific method. The social scientists, they didn't come around until the 19th century. And arts, like I've said before, they've really been part of the humanities forever. So if we want to build a world with democracy, with values, with things like empathy, where people take time to think together, you're going to need me, okay? And in my closing statement, I have some arguments that I will share with you that I think will convince you. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Chiou, it is your time to shine. Go ahead and
Thank you very much. I am kind of going to, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I apologize I'm not there in person, and I feel like I'm a little in the dark because I don't get to see everybody else. However, I will work through that. Befitting, I think, the image that the arts have sometimes, I decided not to actually prepare a whole statement. The thing about the arts is that it doesn't necessarily speak to knowledge or rationality or all the things that we often associate with various aspects of human achievement. It is, however, a different kind of human achievement, and one that I sincerely contend is far more important than any of the sciences. Now, I want to back up a little bit and point out that Dr. Colvin seemed to have started to make my argument for me. With all the times that you cited music and the other arts. I would agree, in fact, that it is very logical, in fact, to group the arts with the humanities. In fact, I would contend, if I might be so rebellious myself, as to say that somebody else on the life raft ought to be kicked off so that both the humanities and the arts both have a seat. However, if I have to argue only on behalf of myself, I would say a couple things about the arts. We have always been kind of at the bottom when it comes to what is really important in society, even though we all know that everybody enjoys music to some degree. Everyone enjoys some kind of art to some degree. And the beautiful thing about it is that you don't really have to know anything about it, whether it's dance or music or film or visual arts. You don't need to know anything in particular about it to enjoy it and to take it all in. And that speaks to something that's much, much deeper than all the things that we know as humans. And that goes to who we are as human beings. I mean, that's going to be the most fundamental thing that I think we want in the event of this apocalypse. We are going to be rebuilding, yes, but we have to remember that we are people and we need to have some kind of connection with ourselves if we're going to band together and to rebuild in the first place. One kind of scene that I recall is that when bad things happen, what do people tend to do? I'm thinking of images of people in Louisiana who had just suffered, once again, the effects of a devastating hurricane. A lot of their property is ruined, so much destruction there, and yet when people are coming out, as grief-stricken as they are, they're also always looking out for other people, saying, are you guys okay? That's the kind of human connection that we all have for each other in the darkest of our times. We're in an apocalypse. We are going to be in that kind of thing times, I don't know, infinity. And so it's important for us to foster that kind of human connection. And the arts is going to be the strongest area that's going to be able to do that. I would also, excuse me, point this out in another way as well. The arts, how should I put this? I want to go a little bit further in saying how the arts really speaks to us as human beings. It's because the arts touch us on a deeply emotional level that separates us from the social sciences and the natural sciences, and even to some degree, some of the humanities as well. And again, it's just to emphasize that the human connection is really what's going to be the most important thing as we try to rebuild. I'll give you one sort of scene that I would sort of use as an example in my closing statement. But final word that I would give right now to the devil's advocate is that you have to understand that as a representative of the arts, I'm used to taking a beating. So bring it on. I want to hear what you have to say. But the arts, because of what we have contributed to the world, this is part of our culture. And that's, I think, the most important thing. Yeah, we have knowledge. We've got scientific knowledge. We've got what we've learned about each other through the social sciences. But part of us as a people and our cultures, that's the thing that I think is going to be most in danger. That's the thing that we want to preserve. Now, I'm going to go on the idea once again that both the arts and the humanities ought to be saved. It's because of this need to maintain our cultures. Arts are a big part of that culture. And, you know, devil's advocate tried to knock on Dr. Colvin about certain papers. Well, you know what? Language is really important too, because language, no matter what language you're talking about, stems from culture. It's not the other way around. We need to preserve language because that's part of way of preserving our culture. But arts is another way that we do it. I would, of course, argue that it is even more important, but it's all about how we preserve our culture. And that's going to be the difficult thing to do. Thanks.
It's all yours. Is he done yet? Okay. Let's see. Current slide. All right, I'm getting a hang of this. Okay. All right. Music is important. I listen to music all the time. There is no denying that. It'd be nice to have some music on the raft too. It might be a long journey. Nice to have some tunes. But let's be real. Professor Chiou came and gave a concert in the wonderful Gray Chapel. And Billie Eilish had a concert at the Branch Rickey Arena. Who would go to his concert? Really? No. Yeah. Not just to remind you also, he also mentioned that if he could, he would remove one extra person from the raft. That means one of you. He would actually kill one of you. Selfish. Art's at the bottom. He says arts is always at the bottom. I do believe in a revealed preference, which means maybe it deserves to be there. Maybe there's a reason. There's a reason why it's there. All right, look. Let's face it. Professor Chiou's instrument is a piano. Wonderful piano player. Great. Piano. Do you have any sense of what's going on here? A piano. Look at this. A piano on a raft. Right there. So how many people can you fit besides that piano? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Huh? What's going on with that? Hey, me too. He couldn't go with a harmonica. He went with a piano. He wants to bring that on the raft? Ah, Jesus. Look, he acknowledged, he made my job easy. He acknowledged, you do not need to know anything about music to appreciate music or arts. So, okay, fine, we don't need you. If you said it yourself, right? Exactly. So we don't need you to go, or you guys don't need him to go. He's used to taking a beating. Is this supposed to be make me feel bad about him so I don't beat up on him. I don't know. Frank, you're a good adversary. All right.
I'm sorry, is it back to me now?
Frank, can you hear me?
Yeah.
2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Okay. Well, just like the rebuttals for the two previous rebuttals, the devil's advocate has shown that he completely misses the point, trying to reduce everything to the literal idea of the arts and my playing the piano. The point here is not whether somebody would choose to come to my concert or to a Billie Eilish concert. Indeed, I know what my playing's like. I would probably go to the Billie Eilish concert. The point is that some kind of artistic medium is something for the people to enjoy. That's the whole point about being part of the arts and why the arts are important. True, I said, nobody needs to know anything about art itself, but it's the presence of art and our ability and the availability of it, the ability to enjoy those arts for everyone who is still going to be with us. That's what's really important. That's it, I'm done.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Francesca Nestor, Politics and Government, Social Sciences. So like other colleagues have acknowledged, I recognize the irony of this exercise in light of our interdisciplinary nature at OWU. All for one for all, that's supposed to be us, right? Not attacking each other. But I understand. You had a collective decision to make here. There's one spot left in the life raft. So you instituted a decision rule. You made a policy. That's what you did. You came up with a policy. And you know what? You were right. Decision rules and policies are the foundation. That's what'll take us forward. That's what we need. Okay? And guess what? With what's facing us, that's not going to be the last time you have to allocate scarce resources among people who want them. You're going to have rules about who has a voice, how big of a majority, who gets to decide, who gets how much. Rules will have to happen. Politics and government are inevitable. Bad politics and government is not inevitable, despite what they try to tell you. Good government can be the foundation for everything else. These others, they can't be the foundation. They can't do that. Rules will happen, and bad rules will happen if you don't have me along. And they'll get in the way of everything else. So here's some examples. Let's talk about language. So over the summer, I watched this 2016 BBC adaptation of War and Peace. It was really, really good. And so I decided I'm going to read War and Peace. So it's really long. And I have an audiobook. The thing's like over 60 hours long, and I'm only 10 hours in. What I found really interesting, though, while I was listening, though, and of course, in English, they just indicate this. So all these Russian aristocrats in the book, they're speaking French. And I thought to myself, why are they all speaking French? This is in Russia. Okay? And then I looked it up, and it turns out they were so connected to France at the time. They had such a relationship that Russian aristocrats wanted to signal that they were like Western Europeans. They wanted to signal that they were like the French. Okay, they liked each other that much. Spoiler alert, though, the book's about war between Russia and France. So they had that much of a connection, but their governments still went to war. Ruined all that. Scientists study this phenomenon known as phosphorescence, bioluminescence. Apparently, a lot of marine animals in the water, they make light so bright that you could read by it. I don't know, I'm not a sailor, but that's what they say. And you know what bad government did with that? They sunk each other's ships. They could see each other, so they sunk each other's ships. They can't be the foundation. Bad government will be in the way. You need good government. That's why you need me. Okay? Meanwhile, here's an example of how good government can lift the others up. Okay, so Broadway, the model for Broadway is to make it work, you have to fill up all the seats. You got to pack the house to make it pay for itself. Okay, so they have not been able to open. Only, I think, a couple of shows have opened now that we have vaccines and you can pack people in that close together. In Britain, they've been able to have shows for a while now. The Royal Shakespeare Company, the National Theatre, because they were able to sit farther apart. Why is this? British government invests in the arts. They make a choice that it's a good thing to pay for. Okay? We can do that moving forward. Other countries have a national theater, lots of them. We don't. Okay? Bad government isn't inevitable. If government is a problem for these other disciplines, if it's getting in the way, that's for us to fix, and we can do that. You can't ignore it. This won't be the last decision rule you put in place, but decision rules can save us all. And we have this one chance to get it right. So since you're forcing us to choose, that's your decision rule, that's your policy. I'll play along. Okay? My suggestion is not that you choose only me, simply me first. We'll come back for the others, okay? We can get funding for a Coast Guard going, life jackets, flares, and we'll come back for you all later-ish, okay? And while you're all waiting, since you can work together in an interdisciplinary way to make something. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe like take a hollowed out shell, like a conch shell. Instead of when you hold it up to your ear, you can hear the ocean. When you hold it up to your ear, it sings in different languages. That's what you can make together, which is very useful, I'm sure. And when we get you and bring you back, I'd be happy to provide grant funding for that through our new government system that supports you all. So yeah, you should definitely pick me.
All right, that's nice. So, I am the devil's advocate, but I'm also a fellow social scientist. I'm an economist by trade, and I guess some would find it very appropriate to carry around a pitchfork as an economist. In any case, so my field used to be known as the political economy. But it seems that at some point in time in history, we felt that the political part was holding us back, and we abandoned it. We became economics. Let me, for instance, show you an analogy. So think about this steak. I'm sorry if you're a vegetarian. I apologize. I couldn't find a good analogy with a fruit or vegetable. So imagine this wonderful steak is political economy. And then what did we do as economists? We trimmed the fat off a little bit. So let's call that politics. And we were left with nice, wonderful, just the meaty part, economics. All right. One for all and all for one? All for one, one for all. Okay, all for one for all. Since you can't take them all, they all got to go. You can't take any of them. Right? She just fed me that. I couldn't have, thank you. I couldn't have asked for a better. So you can't really take any of them since they have to work together, be together. So still using allocating scarce resources. I thought that's what economics does. We have it in the title. The definition of our discipline is allocation of scarce resources. So there's some stealing here, like a true person from the government just takes away from you. So she read War and Peace. Have you ever seen that thing? You must have lots of time on your hands, maybe not many takers for the services of government and studying government. I think, 1,000 pages? Good arguments, but I don't think you're making it on the boat. If I were you, I would not take her with me. One more thing. If she is so good at studying the presidency, she has a course called the American Presidency. You know, a little heads up would have been useful in 2016. I guess Emmett Brown, no one knew it back in the 80s. All right.
Haters gonna hate, 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 hate. You know, this makes it really easy for me because I thought, how am I going to go after the devil's advocate when he's a fellow social scientist? Political scientists and economics, it's true, we have a long and difficult history. Political scientists have this sort of methodological inferiority complex, so we're always trying to make our methods fancier so that we seem fancier. One way that we tried to adapt was we borrowed the idea of the rational actor model and applied it to the American presidency. And what that model says is that it doesn't matter who the individual president is. Got this idea from economics. It doesn't matter who the individual president is. You stick them into the system that we have, the government system. Any president's going to act basically the same way. Presidents act presidentially is the idea. Can you think of a recent president who maybe violates the idea that individuals in the presidency don't matter? Just food for thought. They do. And by the way, if you'd been in my classes in 2016, I wasn't even here yet, okay? Also, Econ delights in publishing findings. They're not done with us. They still publish findings on politics. They delight in publishing things that we've known for 20 years. Things like polarization matters. Tell me more, economists. When I went to the University of Chicago for my public policy degree, I had a lot of econ. You can't go to Chicago without having econ. Like, they just stuff it down your throat with breakfast. And they were always talking to us about unintended consequences. In other words, don't put a policy in place if you don't know how it's going to come out, because things that could come out of it would be things that you don't intend. Okay? Loosely translated, that means keep your hands off the free market. That's what they're saying. We're on a freaking life raft. Where's your economy now? Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt it with a few decision rules. So I'm used to haters. I mean, devil's advocates. I mean, economists. It's okay, though. I think economists are in pain, and I know the source of the pain. So to all the economists, from all the political scientists, in the immortal words of Meghan Trainor, if I was you, I'd wanna be me too.
All right. I will now be inviting up all of the professors to give their final remarks. Each person will have 5 minutes, including the devil's advocate, who will get the last 5 minutes, and then after that, we will vote. Dr. Carreno.
I'm a little bit speechless here, just blown away by the absolute lameness and insignificance of the comments that have been made this afternoon. It's just, I don't know what to say. I think the humanities representative made a pitch of empty words and terms, just a word salad of nonsense that doesn't make any sense. We can say that if the apocalypse happened as some sort of a nuclear situation or a pandemic or something, that these weapons and things like that were invented by scientists. So what are we supposed to do as scientists? Not develop anything anymore because it could be dangerous? Is that the logic of what we should be doing? Then this word democracy comes out. Democracy, democracy. I don't know if I'm the oldest person on the floor here. I think I am, sadly. But I've heard that so many times in this country. Americans spreading democracy around the world. How great has that gone for the history of this country? Democracy in a life raft. What does democracy? Democracy can be defined as two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for dinner. I mean, it's just a term that's bandied about for nothing. Similar to the social sciences, talking about politics, all this talk about good government. You have to have good government, good government. Many European leaders said that in the 20th century. And what good government ended up there? 2 world wars killing millions of people? Good government in an ideology that killed more than 100 million people? So do you trust someone to say, oh, good government? Good government is what I say it is. You have to be careful with that. As for sciences, I think that we could have sat around, the scientists could have sat around during the COVID pandemic and read poetry and sung songs, but they were busy developing a vaccine that made us be able to be here today, and one that will stand as one of the triumphs of science, as the historians will show us in the years to come. The COVID vaccine is one of the greatest developments, and it's one whose methodology will yield more vaccines for other diseases and ailments and illnesses for humankind. So this is something that stands as a triumph for the sciences. As for the devil's advocate, of all the useless things he said, one thing really does stand out, that he made a very good point into the other speakers, namely that it is an apocalypse. There are few, if any, other survivors. This is a serious situation here, and the scientist is the one who will show the way. We need art and culture and some sort of a political system to come forth, but first we must rebuild. We're down to the roots of developing food sources, clean and safe water, regrowing agriculture, animals for all kinds of different purposes, habitat, fixing the climate that inevitably would have been destroyed. And all of these things come down to the scientists. If you read through the history of different scientists throughout the world in our collective history as humans, you will see that much science has brought forth much poetry, literature, and joy in the improvement of our world overall.
Really? Science brings up literature and joy and poetry? Please, come on. All right, guys. So earlier I spoke about the humanities as a discipline and what a world without the humanities would be like. So now I want to talk a little bit about what I specifically can provide that none of my colleagues can. Imagine this. What if on our journey on this raft, we encounter another group of humans who have survived the apocalypse? I mean, who knows, right? What if we don't understand one another because we speak different languages and we don't see things the same way, and all of a sudden we're at risk of another war, of fighting with each other because we can't get along, because there's a lack of communication and cross-cultural understanding? It's really easy to poke fun at somebody who speaks different languages, but imagine this. So in this scenario, would you rather be accompanied by someone who studies parasites, or someone who has studied 5 different languages and who knows not only how to learn a language, but also how to teach it to others? Would you rather have someone who is a great pianist, or someone who has lived on 3 different continents and knows how to navigate life in a different culture? Would you rather have somebody who knows about American politics when America doesn't exist anymore, or someone who has made it their life's work to study the languages, histories, cultures, and literatures of several different countries and knows how to think about things from another people's perspective, a skill that can be used to promote peace and understanding? You know, there is a reason, like I said earlier, why the humanities are the oldest branch of knowledge, existing long before the birth of the scientific method or the advent of the social sciences, which wasn't until the 19th century, like I said. Yeah, a world without the sciences may not be perfect, but a world without the humanities, in a world without the humanities, we as humans will not thrive, or dare I dream, be happy. So, I represent the humanities. Friends, if you want to build a world in which communication with others, even across cultures and languages, is possible and is valued, please choose the humanities. If you want a world in which we as humans will not just survive, but actually thrive and live a life filled with creativity and with beauty and meaning, please choose the humanities. If you want to live in a world where people think deeply, independently, and creatively, and are not likely to fall prey to propaganda and mindless populism, choose the humanities. If you want to live in a world where humans display empathy, value diversity, and respect differences, please put your trust in the humanities. So, if you give me a spot on your life raft, I will make sure that the collective knowledge of the humanities helps us address the challenges that we will all face together. And by the way, if the devil's advocate wants an administrator on the life raft, I happen to be a faculty member and an administrator right now, so you get both, the best of both worlds. So, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Chiou, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm going to use a couple of examples from artistic media to sort of make my final argument here. Why the arts are so important. I'll just underscore this again by saying it's about what it does in helping us realize our connections to our fellow humans. The natural sciences are all well and good. It is important to have knowledge, but why should we elevate the arts before scientific knowledge, especially at a time like the apocalypse? Well, let's consider the fact that, as already been referenced here, that the sciences have contributed and have contributed to a lot of bad things in the world in the wrong hands. To use something that I heard from Jon Stewart when he appeared on the Colbert Report not only a couple of months ago, he said something, and I say this because I do believe comedy to be a very high form of art. He said that something like the end of the world is going to begin when a scientist in a lab says something like, "Oh, that worked." That's how it begins. Discovery is all good, all fine and good, but if we don't grapple with the consequences of those discoveries, we're going to just be ending up in another apocalypse. As far as the human connection also goes, I want to bring your attention to 2018 when we had the horrific shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. And the drama department of that school was invited to the Tony Awards in a very moving moment. What did that provide? They sang the song Seasons of Love from Rent. And that is an emotional song. It's all about connection. That allows us to feel some kind of empathy with those kids and their teachers and what they went through on that day. It's an exceedingly important thing. Francesca mentioned something about good government. Well, good government is hard. It is hard, and it's necessary, but it is hard. If you want to have good government, however, you need to have some common sense of purpose, a common sense of destiny. The problem we have right now is that we're in a stage where so many people are at odds because they don't see the things that we all share together, and that is something that the arts brings to us. And finally, I'd like to bring your attention to one of my favorite scenes from Toy Story 3. Near the end of the film, when all the toys are in that garbage dump and they've been funneled down into this area that's funneling them into this incinerator. They're all struggling to climb back up, but they realize that there's no use in doing it. And then finally, Jessie looks up at Buzz and says, "Buzz, what do we do?" And for the first time in those 3 movies, Buzz doesn't know what to do. And with a moment of realization, all he can do is stretch out his hand to her. And with an understanding glance, she realizes what he means and she takes his hand. She turns to her other side and calms Bullseye, the horse, and he calms down. All the other toys embrace each other. They lock hands in together, knowing that this is the end. You realize in a moment like that when you're in such a dire situation, the most important thing is our connection to each other and how much we need to care for each other. That emotional connection is something that the arts provide. It's something that the arts provide in a way that no other field of study can. And for those reasons, I urge you in the strongest way possible, vote for me. Thank you.
You may be about to be on a lonely island, but we're not alone. There are no problems that are only your problem or my problem. There are problems. Whatever we decide, we rise and fall together. That's the lesson of democratic governance. We're all connected. Whether we like it or not, government will happen. As we saw, to solve today's collective action problem, you created a decision rule for us to follow. You are living the reality of life that governance will happen. It's inevitable, Bad government doesn't have to happen. All my colleagues are talking about examples of bad government. And by the way, it's not just bad government, right? I heard that scientists want $15 million to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. Is that right? Okay. So bad government will sweep everything aside, including these all folks. Good government can lift everything up. That's the real life raft of a just society. I know our government has been great right now, okay, but that's just a sign that we need to fix it. I'm not suggesting that we hop off the boat and get the filibuster in place in a wildly undemocratic Senate. Not all societies have the damaging orientation that we do to science and to the arts and to the humanities. Our system permitted it. We allowed things like winner-take-all elections, necessitating supermajorities. To the other folks here, why do you assume they'll listen to you? What if their decision rules permit a united 30% of the public to prevent certain outcomes? Not that I'm referring to anything specific. The CDC is wonderful. Scientists are wonderful, okay? They need to be unbiased. They don't want to be political, but they need to understand politics. And you all have to understand politics. Deborah Birx, do you remember her? She's faded from the scene. I really believe she thought that she could ignore the politics and just do her job and things would fall into place, and that's not what happened. Bad government actors will ruin us. We need good government actors. Government is us, though. If you don't like the reflection that you see of government, okay, well, you can contribute to changing it. That's you. Our system can be all for one, one for all, just like our interdisciplinary system here at Ohio Wesleyan. If you prefer the Latin, unus pro omnibus, omnis pro uno. But the truth is, no matter how you say it or sing it or study it, it has to have supportive government structures to mean something real. Favorite show of mine is a quote from it, and I'll fix it in a second. It is the will of man that makes living a hell on earth. It is only the will of man that will change it. I'm fixing it too. It is the will of people that makes living a hell on earth. It is only the will of people that will change it. You have a duty to meet this moment. It's time to come up with a government that we don't need to fix. So let's make the rest of your decision rules good ones. And I'm here to help you do that.
Okay. So I thought today that my job would be very hard. It's usually hard to argue against something. It's harder to argue against it than for it. But you know what? These characters made my job so easy. After seeing those presentations now, it wasn't really that hard. So again, none of these professors deserves to be on the raft. And going back to critical thinking and reasoning, let me spell it out. So amazingly, every single candidate believes that they can single-handedly save the humanity, and no one else is even remotely capable of doing so. Whoa, that's kind of humble. And moreover, what you've heard is that every single discipline is solely responsible for everything that was done in the world. But you know what? Those things would have happened anyway. They just want to take credit for it. Don't fall for that. Fine arts folks said, without them we wouldn't be able to appreciate life and capture the important moments in history. Without their concertos, plays, paintings, piano lessons. Yeah, you don't need all of that. Do you need somebody to tell you that Eine kleine Nachtmusik from Mozart is good piece? No, you know that yourself. You don't need Professor Chiou to answer that for you. Modern foreign languages, Spanish, humanities. They told you that without them we can't communicate. What, did they invent Spanish? No, they're taking credit for something that was already done. If this is truly the end of the world, instead of communicating in Spanish, most likely we'll be communicating in English anyhow. This is me after 4 years of Spanish classes. All right. So, politics, that's where, look where it got us. And Professor Nestor had to actually throw titles around to get us to pay attention. Like, when I was at University of Chicago, like, what, are we supposed to be impressed by that? All right. And then, finally, science is represented by our esteemed colleague from the zoology department. They show us something from the nature, like an orca, and claim they have discovered it. What? No, you have not. It was there. It was created by nature. Maybe you've taken some photos and sold it to National Geographic. Unless you can convince Free Willy to pull the raft to the new place, we do not need you. Don't even bother to be on the raft. Can you do that? Can you talk orca? All right. Yes. All right, so, and also I found out today that without scientists, life wouldn't be possible. I guess that answers the big mystery, what was first after Big Bang? The scientists. Otherwise, how do we explain humanity? So, where are we right now? Turn around, you can see an apocalypse. A lot of people are gone. Evidence of failure is everywhere. Apparent. Cannot be more apparent. And these have failed miserably. They're guilty really for everything that has happened. Fine arts are probably the main reason why the nuclear war started. I don't know why, but probably is. Politics couldn't articulate that humans share the planet and diplomacy would be a better solution than a nuclear war. So hence we had a nuclear war. Languages couldn't help to have a discourse to avoid the conflict. Maybe we need a better interlocutor. Zoology couldn't teach us that organisms don't respond well to nuclear radiation. Unless, I guess, we are all cockroaches, and that goes back to the paper. So let me close on by saying that I believe that this life raft is not really a post-nuclear apocalypse. This is a life metaphor. It is for you after college. Journey on the life raft you're about to embark is journey on life you're heading and your future. Maybe to the first interview after graduation, to the first job, maybe going on a date with somebody, purchase a house, maybe to have a first child. And in that journey, which one of these professors would you want along? Do you want Professor Nestor to go with you when you go voting, into the voting booth with you to tell you should vote for this person? All right, maybe. Do you want Professor Colvin to help you communicate with your spouse's Costa Rican parents because you don't know Spanish like me? Do you want Professor Chiou to go with you to the dealership and test out the sound system in your car to see whether it's actually worth buying? Or maybe you want to go, you take Professor Carreno when you go and choose a pet. I don't think so. I think what you've learned here is good enough for you to take you on a journey that you can take it in your hands. What should we do with these? Off the plank. Let them walk the walk. Thank you.
All right. One more round of applause for everybody. I think they deserve it today. So at this point in time, I would invite everybody to take out their cell phones and go ahead and scan this QR code up here so you can fill out the Google form to vote for who you think deserves the last spot on the life raft. All right, how are we feeling about the voting? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Good, everybody's got theirs in? Okay, I'm gonna unplug real quickly so I can look at the results and then I'll check back in a moment. Here I have the paddle that belongs to the winner of this year's Life Raft, who gets to sign it for winning the Life Raft debate. So without further ado, the results dictate that the last spot belongs to Dr. Nestor. All right. Anywhere. You have such nice handwriting. All righty, congratulations. All right, thank you everybody for coming out today. This was so much fun. Thank you again to all of you for being here and preparing. This was awesome. Dr. Chiou, thank you for showing up online. Sorry you can't see us, but we appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you.
So yeah, go ahead and give OWU Honors a follow on Instagram. We'll try to post some pictures of the event. And other than that, have a great rest of your week.